Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's Gear204 here bringing you another Minecraft World War II vehicle tutorial. In this tutorial, we'll be going ahead and building the family of Panzer IV vehicles. The Panzer IV, known officially as the Panzerkampfwagen 4, was a German medium tank developed in the late 1930s and used extensively during the Second World War. Its ordnance inventory designation was SD-KFZ 161. The Panzer IV was the most numerous German tank and the second most numerous German fully tracked armored fighting vehicle of the Second World War, coming in second behind the Stug 3. Its chassis was also used as the base for many other fighting vehicles, including the Sturmgeschütz 4 assault gun, the Jagdpanzer IV self-propelled anti-tank gun, the Whirlwind self-propelled anti-aircraft gun, and the Brummar self-propelled gun, to name a few examples. The Panzer IV saw service in all combat theaters involving Germany and was the only German tank to remain in continuous production throughout the war. It was originally designed for infantry support, while the similar Panzer III was to fight armored fighting vehicles. However, as the Germans faced the formidable T-34, the Panzer IV had more development potential with a larger turret ring to mount more powerful guns. So it swapped roles with the Panzer III, whose production wound down in 1943. The Panzer IV received various upgrades and design modifications intended to counter new threats, extending its service life. Generally, these involved increasing the armor protection or upgrading the weapons. Although during the last months of the war, with Germany's pressing need for rapid replacement of losses, design changes also included simplifications to speed up the manufacturing process. So yeah, the Panzer IV here is one of the most, if not the most, well, maybe the Tiger a little bit more, but one of the most iconic German vehicles of the Second World War. It was basically the workhorse and really was the tank that was the most numerous out there, serving that medium tank role. So it definitely deserves a whole tutorial covering all of its variants, and we're going to be going ahead and obviously in this tutorial covering every single one of the tanks you see in front of us, starting with our C model and working our way all the way up to the J model. Now, I do want to go ahead and throw in there that I did not include the A and B model, which were very low production run designs, and realistically they were very similar, if not the same, to the C model. So I just went ahead and built the C model to kind of encapsulate the A and B model as well. But just know that the A, B, and C models were built in really low numbers. I don't think any of those models actually went over 50 units. Your first real production unit was the D model, and then after the D we have the E, F1, F2, then we have the G, H, and J. So those are all the variants that will be present in this tutorial and we will be covering. We don't have any special variants or anything like that, like command ones or snorkel ones or any of the other random miscellaneous designs. These are strictly the main kind of base production models, and we'll probably do a tutorial in the future where we cover some of the add-ons or some of the different modifications you could do to them to turn them into the some of those cooler variants. But anyways, let's kind of dive in here, take a look at each model, just kind of go ahead and real quickly cover what we're going to be taking a look at and get started. Now, the first thing you're going to notice here is that the early war tanks are actually in a gray color, and this is actually to render them more actually accurate to how they would have been portrayed. Germany used a dark gray color. Now, granted, this is a little darker than it's supposed to be, but they did use a dark gray color to basically paint their early war tanks. So that is why we have this dark gray scheme on these tanks. So you'll start to see, as my German vehicles become updated and more tutorials come out over time, you'll start to see this color used a little bit more often. But going ahead and getting started with, we have the C model. So pretty straightforward. It doesn't have the little back extra extension on the turret. Again, just real simple. One of your main differences you're going to be able to tell this model apart is it doesn't have a hole-mounted machine gun. Our next model here is the D variant. So again, very similar to that of the C, has a hole-mounted machine gun and just a little bit of an altered front to it. Next model here is the E model. The E model had a little bit of up-armored, so it has a little bit of thicker sides, and that's pretty much about it. There would also be armor plating on the front, but kind of hard to represent with Minecraft and the blocks we have. But right there is the the E model, and it also has the kind of rear extension onto the turret as well. Next one we have here is the F1 version. So, again, pretty straightforward. Then we have the F2 version, which was the first one to mount the 75mm long gun. So that is what we have here. And then we have our next model here. This is the G model. And the G model was pretty much one of the first of the Panzer IVs to be done up in the tan color scheme. So later on, kind of mid to late war, Germany shifted its color schemes over to this tan color. They kind of called it like a brownish yellow, but it was designed to help to blend the tanks in a little bit better, considering that they were they stood out a lot with their darker gray color scheme. So that's what they have going on here. And this here is obviously a G model, so just a continual improvement. Next model we have here is the H model. So this one here has a machine gun mounted on top. It also has some of the side armor, everything like that, which started to become a lot more common on these later war models. And then the last one we have over here is the J. This right here was the pinnacle of the Panzer IV design. Again, pretty much really similar to that of the other tanks. The only difference here is that this model was designed to speed up production, so it actually has a different muffler set up on the back here. It has just 2 pipes on the back rather than having this kind of more horizontal, don't want to say complex, but larger exhaust. So kind of one of the telltale differences there. But yeah, that right there is pretty much it for the Panzer IVs. We're going to be going ahead and covering in this tutorial. Obviously, if you've watched some of these these large tutorials before, we will be going ahead and building the C model and then going ahead and showing you how to modify it for each variant going forward. So with that though, let's go ahead and move into our tutorial with how to build the C model. Alright guys, so going ahead and moving into our tutorial here, we'll be going ahead and starting off with our first Panzer IV, which is going to be the Ausf C variant. This C variant here is going to be the baseline for us to go ahead and expand upon for all the future builds. So just note that we're going to be going ahead and building this model for all the Panzer IVs, and then you'll be modifying it based off of each section or each different vehicle once we get to that. So just keep that in mind going forward, is that for any of these tanks you will need to start with this one. Just kind of makes things a little bit easier. Now, in addition, I do want to go ahead and mention that if you want to build the later war tanks, so the G, the H, or the J, you will want to probably build this tank in the sandstone color. So I went ahead and used smooth sandstone throughout the build, yellow stained glass panes, birchwood trapdoors, signs, buttons. Just want to throw that out there because I would recommend using those. Right now, just kind of make things a little bit easier so you don't have to change all the colors out. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started here. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and start off with doing is we're going to place down another brick upside down stair. And we want to go ahead and then take our grindstones. We're going to place down a row of 8. So coming off of it, so we're going to place down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we're going to place down another brick upside down stair on the other side here. Now we also want to go ahead and grab ourselves some nether brick. Full blocks, so right here, and we're going to place down a row of nether brick full blocks underneath these road wheels, so like so. And then we're going to go and take our polished blackstone. Again, you can use smooth sandstone if you are building the later war versions. And we're going to place down 3 of these top slabs over, and then we're going to place down 3 dark oak wood trapdoors going forward from that. We're going to then fill in our polished blackstone top slabs all the way across the bottom here until you get to your last grindstone. You're going to go and place down one last row, and you're going to leave it right there. We're going to go then copy the same design that we did over on the other side, just over here to this side. So again, the same track design. And we have our grindstones placed, and then we're going to place down an item frame on each one of these grindstones, and then a gray concrete block in the item frames like that. And the same thing is going to be done over here on this side as well. And this here is going to basically finish off the design there for that. And the very last thing we have to do here is we're going to place down a wither skeleton skull. That's going to go on both sides here of these nether brick stairs. Again, I would use skeleton skulls if you're doing it in sandstone. That right there, though, is going to wrap up everything we have for layer 0 and 1. So here is a view from the top-down view. And with that, we'll be going ahead and moving into our next layer, layer number 2. Moving into our next layer, we go ahead and start with layer 2. For this first layer here, for this first start here, we're going to place down 3 pistons across the space here, and then a gray concrete block on both sides. Now, real quick, before we go and move on, if you are not on Java and don't have access to this tool called the debug stick, this glowing stick you can see in my hand right now, then you're going to want to go ahead and substitute these pistons out for probably some polished blackstone slabs. It's not going to work as good for the front sloping of the build, but we will be using a this tool to kind of modify the properties of the piston, so just keep that in mind. We then want to just go ahead and place down item frames on those pistons like so, and we're going to go and place down a tripwire hook in the item frames and rotate it so it points downwards. And then we can just go ahead and grab ourselves a dark oak wood sign and place it on the side here of that piston like that. Then to the sides here, we're going to place down a dark oak wood trap door, and then an item frame on the sides of the gray concrete blocks, a cobweb in the item frame, and then a polished blackstone button on the side of the block as well. Just note that item frames and buttons can only be added in the same block space if you're on Java, so if you're on a version other than Java, you'll only be able to place down the item frame. After that, we're going to take our gray concrete, we're going to place down a row of 3 across, then a second row, then we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 rows across, filling that space in like that. We're going to go ahead and then grab ourselves some nether brick top slabs, and we want to go ahead and place down a row of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 top slabs, and same thing over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to go ahead and place down an item frame on the second one from front, and we're going to go ahead and skip a space, and then place down an item frame. That's going to go all the way down along the side here, and on the last nether brick slab, we're going to place down item frames, or gray concrete in the item frames, and then dark oak wood signs on the side here of them if you're on Java. Again, just like buttons, item frames and signs can only be placed together on Java. If you are not on Java, you'll unfortunately only be able to place down the item frames. So again, we're just going to do the same thing here on both sides, and that's going to set up our tracks. So with that done, on the back here, we're going to go ahead and then grab ourselves a deep slate brick slab that's going to go on the side of, on both sides here. We're going to go then place down an item frame on the outside of that, then a cobweb in the item frame, and same thing's going to be done over here on this side as well, just like that. In this middle space, we want to go ahead and grab ourselves, again, our deep slate brick. We're going to place down a row of 3, row 2, and then 1 here with their skeleton skull to the side, and then 2 dark oak wood signs across the back here, or the sides of these slabs. So that is going to basically create that back design there like so. And then we just want to go ahead and grab ourselves a polished blackstone stair and place it coming off that deep slate brick slab. So yeah, that stair on the back there, and that is basically what you want here for this layer. So that's going to basically do it. Here is a top-down view of what layer 2 should look like. And with that, we'll be going ahead and moving into our next layer, which will be layer number 3. Moving into our next layer, we have layer number 3. For layer 3 to go ahead and get started with here, we're going to place down a flower pot on top of these 2 blocks here, and then we want to place down a dark oak wood trapdoor directly behind those flower pots like so. We're going to go ahead and place down a row of 3 of gray stained glass panes, and then a row of 3 of gray concrete. After that, we're going to go back from this row of 3 of gray concrete with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 more rows like that to go ahead and bring us back to this point here. Now we're going to go ahead and focus our attention here first on the right side of the build. This is going to be started with a stone cutter that's going to be positioned like this, and a stone brick slab directly behind that. We then want to go ahead and grab our glass panes, and we're going to place down a row of 1, 2, 3 glass panes back. We're going to go then take our polished blackstone stairs. We're going to place down 2 polished blackstone upside down stairs with dark oak wood signs on the sides of those stairs. And we're also going to place down item frames, and then we're going to place down black beds in those item frames like that for the venting on the side of the engine. After that, we want to go ahead and then place down a dark oak wood trapdoor on the back here, another item frame. In this item frame, we're going to go ahead and place down a red concrete block for the 1 tail light, and then a dark oak wood sign over it if you're on Java. Now, once we get to this point here, depending on what version you're on, again, is going to affect what we do right here. So for basically all versions, you can have the option of placing down a wither skeleton skull coming off this stone brick slab. And just so we can get out of the way here, we have our iron bars that are going to go up a total of 4. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to be your radio antenna. If you're on Java and you're going to be using your debug stick here, I would highly recommend going ahead and instead of placing this head here, building a block off of it, delete that block, and then we're going to place down a tripwire hook in this space. We're going to use our debug stick here, left click this till we get selected facing, and we're going to rotate this around till it comes off the stone brick slab. And that right there is going to basically create that. Also on the sides here, you have the option for, again, my Java players with the debug stick to actually go ahead and extend the glass panes out to the sides here, and this just kind of helps fill in the gaps here and just kind of makes this side of the tank look a little bit more connected. So definitely look into doing that as well, again, for my Java players. Then we're going to place down a dark oak wood, or sorry, rather a item frame on this glass pane here, a black bed sideways in it. And if you're on Java, again, we'll place a dark oak wood sign like that to create that viewport. Now on the left side of the build here, we're going to go ahead and place down a spruce slab like so, and then a spruce wood sign on the side of it. We then want to go ahead and take our glass panes. We're going to place down 1, 2, 3, 4 glass panes. And then we're going to place down our 2 polished black stone upside down stairs. Again, our 2 item frames. And we're going to place down our black beds in the item frames, rotated sideways, and then dark oak wood signs on the sides here again if you're on Java. And we'll also going to place down a dark oak wood trapdoor right here on top of that slab there. So this is what it should look like on the side here. Again, you'll extend this glass pane here. We're going to leave this glass pane alone. Again, if you're using your debug stick to extend those glass panes. Now, on the very back here for this layer, we're also going to place down a polished blackstone slab on top of here, an item frame, and a black bed in the item frame, dark oak wood sign on the side here. And then after that is all done, we're going to go ahead and place down a lever. Again, this is going to be a Java only feature. And we're going to place down a lever here, left click this lever till we get selected facing, selected face. We're going to right click this, set this to floor, left click this again until we get selected facing, and rotate this again so it connects up to this slab here. So it should look something that looks like that. So pretty straightforward and pretty simple there for that. And the very last thing here is just to go ahead and place down an item frame here, a gray concrete block in the item frame, and a dark oak wood sign over like that to go ahead and round off what we have for the back. Anyways, though, that is going to wrap up everything there is there for this layer. Real quickly, if you're on Java, up on the front here, we'll be using our debug stick here to actually right-click these pistons. You left-click these till you get the prompt selected extended true, and we'll right-click those, get rid of the wood portion like that on top of it to go ahead and fix those pistons like so. Anyways, though, that is going to do it for layer number 3 of the build, and with that, we'll move on to layer number 4. Moving into our next layer, we have layer number 4. For layer 4 to start with, we're going to place down a item frame that's going to go on top of this block here, and an item frame right here, and we're going to place down a gray concrete block in those item frames. Now, after that, we're going to place down a gray concrete block here, and then we want to place down a polished blackstone upside down stair to both sides of this gray concrete block, as well as 1 and 2 polished blackstone top slabs coming off of that going forward. After we have that all done, we want to go ahead and then place down a wither skeleton skull on the tip of those slabs, and we're also going to place down a chain on this right stair. Now, again, depending on your version, you may not be able to place down an item frame and chain in the same block space. If that's the case, then you'll just have to go ahead and place down just the chain and get rid of that item frame there. And then over here on this side, we have the same thing. We have an item frame here with a gray concrete block in the item frame. Again, if you're on a different version other than Java, you'll have to pick between the two, whichever item frame you prefer to have. After that, we're going to go ahead and place down a row 3 of green terracotta, of gray concrete across. And then we're going to go ahead and place down a dark oak trapdoor to both sides. After that, we're going to place down another row of 3 of gray concrete across, and then we're going to place down a tripwire hook on both ends. After we have that done, we want to go ahead and place down a gray concrete block in the center here, and a polished black stone wall in the corners like that to go ahead and create the base there of the turret. After that is all done, we then want to go ahead and place down 2 polished blackstone buttons here, 2 polished blackstone pressure plates, a polished blackstone button, and again 2 more pressure plates over on the other side. And that right there is going to conclude everything we have for layer number 4 of the build. And with that, we'll be moving on to layer number 5. Moving into our next layer, we have layer 5. For layer 5 to start with, we're going to place down a gray carpet here, then a dark oak trapdoor behind that. We then want to place down a row of 3 of daylight detectors. So 1, 2, 3. We're going to go ahead and turn these to the night mode just like that. After we have that done, we want to go ahead and place down a row of 3 of polished blackstone slabs, a polished blackstone stair here, and then a wither skeleton skull to both sides of that stair. Then we're just going to place down a gray shulker box and a dark oak wood trapdoor on the back here, or on the side facing toward the back of that shulker box. Then in the corners here, we're just going to place down a wither skeleton skull at a slight angle like that to both sides, and that is going to pretty much round off the back of the turret and complete what we have there for the tank. And the very last thing actually is going to be a polished blackstone button on top of the shulker box. So that right there is going to conclude that. And also on the front gun here, we're going to place down a dark oak sign to both sides of the slab here. And if you're on Java, we can also place a sign in right there and kind of sneak it in for that gun. But that right there is going to conclude everything we have for our tank, and that is going to complete the Panzer IV Ausf C. Now again, just to mention that this here is going to be the base model we'll be using to go ahead and build the rest of our tanks, so definitely make sure to keep that in consideration going forward, that to build the rest of these tanks you will need to have this model built. So with that, we'll be going ahead and moving on to the modifications to turn this into the E model. Alright guys, so going ahead and moving into the D variant. The D variant is super easy to modify. We just need to make a couple changes to this build. First being is we're going to delete this glass pane right here, and in this place we're going to place down a chain. So you're going to have kind of the driver's cupola stick out a little bit further there, and then you have this machine gun that's a little bit more recessed. After that, on the very back here, you're just going to go ahead and delete this slab and this item frame, all this right here, and in its place you're going to place down a flower pot. So just like that, you'll leave that lever there if you're on Java, and everything else is going to stay the same. So really minor differences for the D model, and this here was the kind of first main production model of the Panzer IV line, so this is definitely the one you're going to see the most in those early war scenarios. That's it for the D model. Let's move on to the E model. Moving on to our next model, we have the E variant. The E variant, we're going to start off by going ahead and deleting this glass pane here, and this block right here, we're actually going to go ahead and replace with a dark gray shulker box. Then coming off that shulker box, we're going to be going ahead and placing down a chain like that to add that whole mounted machine gun. After that's all complete, we're going to go to the back of the turret here, and the back of the turret is going to get modified. We're going to go ahead and delete this button here, place down a polished black stone top slab, and we're also going to delete this trap door here and place a top slab coming off that as well to go ahead and create the back there of the turret. Now once that's done, we're also going to go ahead and delete these two pressure plates on both sides there, and then we're going to go ahead and place down a wither skeleton skull on the side of this slab, and then a wither skeleton skull that's going to sit on top of that one. So it's going to look like this here for the very back. We're also going to go ahead and grab ourselves some of these deep slate tile blocks, and we're going to go ahead and place these blocks right here in there like that to go ahead and create the vents. Now for the very back here, we're going to go ahead and also be doing some modifications. We're obviously going to delete this slab and that item frame. We're also going to go ahead and delete the lever here if it's placed, and this skull right here. We're going to go ahead and then place down a deep slate tile slab across, so you have a total of basically 3 of these slabs across, and then a dark oak trapdoor over here on the left side. We're going to go ahead and then grab ourselves a flower pot. We're going to place down a flower pot on top of this slab here, and then we want to go ahead and grab ourselves a gray shulker box, and we're going to place down a gray shulker box in the middle there coming off of that. In addition, on the sides here where we have these glass panes, we're actually going to go ahead and swap these out for polished black stone walls. So just go ahead and delete these glass panes and place down polished black stone walls instead for that extra armor that's bolted onto the sides. And that right there is going to complete what we have for the E model. And actually one quick thing also, kind of more optional here, is to actually replace these trapdoors with grindstones for some spare road wheels, and we're going to go ahead and just place down an item frame on the side here of them, a gray concrete block in the item frame. You can also do the same on the inside here if you're on Java. So again, we have that capability to put a item frame on both sides, which is pretty cool. And then obviously on the back here, we still have this brake light, again with that dark oak sign if applicable. So that right there is kind of what it should look like for the E model. So pretty cool design overall. Again, just trying to make sure I'm not missing anything. And one last thing here is going to be a dark oak trapdoor right here on that block. But that right there is going to be it for the E model this time for sure, 100%. And with that, we'll be going ahead and moving on over to the F1 model. Our next variant is going to be the Panzer IV Ausf F1. For the F1 version here, we're going to start off by going ahead and just very simply placing down a chain coming off that glass pane like that. And that's all we need to do for the front there. We are pretty much good to go for the front. Now, when it comes to the rear of the turret, we're going to be going ahead and doing the same design we did over here on our E version. So it's going to be deletion of this button, deletion of these pressure plates, this top slab here, and then a half slab on top of it instead of that dark oak trapdoor. We're going to have this wither skeleton skull on the side of this slab here, and then we want to go ahead and place down a another skeleton skull up on top here of those. So it's going to look like this here for the back of that turret. We're going to go ahead and again take our deep slate tile blocks. We're going to place them down like this right there. And then after that, we want to go ahead and place down a dark oak trapdoor on this middle block like that. So that's going to help kind of form the turret, all that stuff. Again, very similar to that of what we have here for this one. We then want to go ahead and grab ourselves some deep slate brick slabs, some wither skeleton skulls, and some walls here, and of course, as always, some flower pots. And what we're going to do here is we're going to delete this slab section up on top here, and that item frame. We're going to place down a flower pot into place. We're also going to delete this lever here if you have it placed. And then we want to go ahead and delete this wither skeleton skull. We're going to go ahead and then place down a wither skeleton skull coming off this block here. If you're on Java, we're going to place down an item frame on the side of this block. And in that, we're going to place down a gray concrete block. Again, that's going to only be for Java. On top of this, we're going to go ahead and then place down a polished black stone wall. And just to double check, I believe that is all we need to do there for the back of this build, and that appears to be pretty solid and pretty much all we need to do. So really straightforward stuff. That is going to create the F1 version here of the Panzer IV, and with that we'll be going ahead and moving on to the F2 version. Moving into our next version, we have the F2 version. The F2 version here is our first long gun Panzer IV, so let's go and dive into it. First thing we're going to do, of course, is place down the chain coming off this glass pane here. We're going to go then delete this zombie head here, or that skeleton skull on the tip there, and we're going to go ahead and go forward from this polished blackstone slab. We're going to place down an additional 4 slabs forward, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So your gun should stick 3 past the front of the build. We're going to go ahead and then place down an item frame on the front like this, and then we're going to go ahead and grab ourselves a black concrete block, and we're going to place down a black concrete block in that item frame, a dark oak wood sign on the side here. Again, if you're on Java, for all versions, we're going to place down a dark oak wood sign on the side there of it like that. And then on top here of that slab on the very tip, we're going to place down a dark oak wood trapdoor. And we're also going to delete this carpet here, and we're going to place down a dark oak wood trapdoor here, and then we'll just place down 3 gray carpet going forward to the forward trapdoor, and that's going to be your long gun version there of the Panzer IV. Now, once we have that all complete, we want to go ahead and then go to the back of the turret. We're going to need to go ahead and do those modifications we've been doing. So we're going to delete the button, these pressure plates, and for our setup here, we're going to place down a top slab here, delete this trapdoor and a slab on top of that. We're going to place down a wither skeleton skull on both sides of this bottom slab, and then wither skeleton skulls on top of the slabs above them. So it's going to create that design there for the rear of the turret. We also want to go ahead and grab ourselves the deep slate tile blocks. We're going to place them in where those gray concrete blocks are, and then a dark oak trapdoor on top of this block. After we have that done, we're going to go ahead and delete this item frame and this slab, as well as this lever here and this wither skeleton skull. We're going to go ahead and grab ourselves an item frame again, and we're going to go ahead and place down a wither skeleton skull on the side of this gray concrete block. If you're on Java, we can also place down an item frame on the side here of this slab and a gray concrete block in that item frame. Then we're going to place down a polished blackstone wall that is going to sit on top of that wither skeleton skull like so. And then lastly, we're just going to go ahead and place down a flower pot that's going to sit right on top of this block. And just to double check, make sure I'm not missing anything. One thing also I went ahead and added onto this one were some spare wheels here, row wheels for the tank. So we just have 2 right here. So I delete those glass panes, place these on the side here, and then I place down the item frames, gray concrete blocks in the item frames, and then I just went ahead and placed down dark oak wood signs on the side there of them as well. And again, for my Java players, you can make this look a little bit nicer right here by actually extending the glass pane again forward and back to kind of help make that connection a little bit more thorough. But yeah, that right there is pretty nice. And you can also take these same wheels, and if you want to build the F1 version, you can also apply it over here. You can also apply this same thing to both sides, but I just went ahead and did it on the one side again, just to kind of help show a little bit more variation between the different production models. As you'll notice, a lot of these Panzer IVs really don't have a lot of changes between them. But that right there is going to complete the F2, and we'll be going ahead and moving on to the G version. Moving into our next variant, we have the G model. Now, one quick thing to go ahead and discuss about the G model here is that, again, we're going to be using the C model, but this here will be basically a tan color scheme, or that yellow brownish color that the Germans switched to about mid to late war time frame. So that is what we're going ahead and doing here, and since the G model was a mid to late war tank, that is what we have done up here. Now, of course, you could put this in the gray color scheme if you want to. That's always an option. However, this here is the realistic look that this would have had when it would come off the assembly line. So basically all you're going to do is you're going to take your Panzer IV and you're just going to go ahead and basically turn it tan. So you can see here very simply we just have the smooth sandstone replacing our polished blackstone, stair slabs, all that stuff. The pistons on the front here or whatever replaced here are actually replaced with these end stone portals. We have yellow stained glass panes. Obviously, all the signs, buttons, and pressure plates are replaced with birchwood. One thing of note is that the top block up here, instead of using a shulker box, I went ahead and used a stripped birchwood log because it works pretty good. It has a button on top there. Everything on the back here kind of just left the same here for the muffler, the exhaust area. Any skeleton skulls here, you're going to change to skeleton instead of the wither skeleton, and that right there is pretty much all you really need to do. So really straightforward. Just go ahead and take some time now, make sure you get everything transferred over to that tan color scheme, and once you have that all done, we can go ahead and continue on. Alright guys, so we have the tank all set up and good to go. Let's go ahead and dive into it. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and delete this skeleton skull, and we're going to go ahead and extend our gun barrel 1, 2, 3, and 3 more smooth sandstone blocks, and then a polished blackstone slab on the end here. On the slab, we're going to place down dark oak wood signs to the two sides here, and then an item frame on the forward side. In that item frame, we want to go ahead and place down a black concrete block, and again, if you're on Java, we'll place a dark oak wood sign on the side there on front as well. On top of that slab, we're also going to place down a dark oak wood trapdoor, and we also want to go ahead and place down a birchwood trapdoor on this second sandstone top slab there to go ahead and create our long barrel gun. With that done, we're going to go ahead and then delete these flower pots, and we're actually going to go ahead and replace these with item frames. They're going to come off these two slabs here, and those item frames are going to have snowballs in them, so a little bit larger of headlights located on the front there. We also want to go ahead and make sure that we include the hull-mounted machine gun, which is going to be your chain that's going to come off this glass pane, and there should be your bed that is right here that basically is making this driver's view port. So that should be right here to the side. So that is what your front there is going to look like. Now after that's done on the back of the turret, we're going to be going ahead and deleting this button here as well as these two pressure plates on the sides. We're also going to delete this trap door. We're going to place down a top slab here and a slab on top of it. We're going to place down a skeleton skull on the sides of this bottom slab and then on top of the skulls like that. And that's going to basically form the rear there of your turret. We also want to go ahead and grab this deep slate tile blocks, and we're going to place them in these two sections here, as well as a birchwood trapdoor on this middle smooth sandstone block. So that's going to basically create the turret and kind of this top detail above the engine area. Now on the very back here, we want to go ahead and first off delete this slab and this item frame, this design here. We're going to delete that. We're also going to delete this lever and this wither skeleton skull. Now in its place, we're going to go ahead and place down a wither skeleton skull here, an item frame on the side of this block, and in that item frame, we're going to place down a gray concrete block. Again, that item frame is only going to be able to be placed if you're on Java. We're going to go ahead and place down a flower pot on top of the slab, and then a birchwood trapdoor coming off this block like that to go ahead and pretty much finish off your back there. Now at this point, we pretty much just have some details to add on to this build. First being is I'm going to go ahead and throw in some grindstones. Located on the side here. These are again kind of representing would be spare road wheels for the tank to use to repair if needed. And again, we're going to use our item frames, our smooth sandstone blocks in the item frames, and birchwood signs across them if you're on Java. Again, for my Java players, I would recommend going ahead and trying to extend these glass panes to basically kind of fill these voids again. It's just going to do a lot to just improve the overall look there. And then the other side, I went ahead and did the same thing. So I added the grindstones here to both sides of the vehicle. So there's going to be front on both sides. Again, we have our item frames, our smooth sandstone, and our birchwood signs here. And we'll again modify this glass pane if applicable to connect up to both sides. So it's going to look like that. Then we just want to go ahead and place down a random block. It could be whatever you want. It's just going to come off that stair there. And on top of that, we want to go ahead and place down 1, 2, 3, 4 black candles. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we'll just delete those blocks underneath those candles, and we're going to place down a fence gate coming off the side there of those stairs. So it's going to look like that there. And that right there is going to basically complete what we have for the G model. Really straightforward stuff for the most part. And that pretty much wraps it up. One thing again for my Java players, a little bit of extra detail again, just we can place down some birchwood pressure plates on top of here. And then also we have the stripped birchwood that we're actually going to replace these smooth sandstone blocks with here on both sides. So you can go ahead and replace those as well. But yeah, that right there is going to complete your G model of the Panzer IV. So really nice looking design for that. And with that, we'll be going ahead and moving on to the H model. Moving on to our next variant, we have the H model. So again, as I mentioned before in the G1, if you did watch that segment, you will be taking your C model and you'll be completely recoloring this. You'll be going ahead and replacing any gray concrete with smooth sandstone, any polished black stone, blocks, stairs, whatever, will be replaced with smooth sandstone as well. Any trapdoors of birchwood, any signs, buttons, pressure plates will all be again birchwood replaced, and that's kind of the main gist of it. Also, these two blocks up here, or these three pistons, or what would be pistons, are actually end portal frames for the tan model. And then also we do have the addition of the stripped birchwood that's going to go up here for the commander's cupola. And also I would recommend going ahead and using that right here for the two hatches for the driver and co-driver located up there on the front. But once you have that kind of all situated, you're pretty much good to go ahead and start building this. It's going to be really similar to that of the Panzer, the G model. So just keep that in mind going forward, really just to find a few minor differences and the add-on armor. So to start with, we're going to go ahead and go to this slab here. We're going to go ahead and delete this skull here, and we're going to go ahead and build 1, 2, and 3 more slabs forward, and then a polished blackstone slab on the very end. We're going to place down an item frame, black concrete in the item frame, and a dark oak wood sign on the side there if you're on Java. Again, on all versions, we're going to place down a sign on the side of this slab, and then on top of it, we want to place down a dark oak wood trapdoor. After that, we want to go ahead and also add a birchwood trapdoor on top of this one right there to go ahead and basically create our long gun. We're also going to go ahead and delete these flower pots up here on the front, and we're going to go ahead and place down item frames in place of those, as well as snowballs in the item frames. We also want to go ahead and place down birch pressure plates in front of these if you're on Java. If not, then don't place down the pressure plates. And then lastly, of course, we have our hole mounted machine gun with a chain coming off this glass pane. Now, once we have that all done, we're also going to go ahead and delete these two glass panes, and we're going to replace them with grindstones, and the same thing we've done over here to these middle two ones. And then we're just going to place down item frames on the side of them, smooth sandstone blocks in those item frames, again to both sides for these extra spare road wheels, and then birchwood signs on the side of those grindstones. So again, the same thing will be done on both sides, like so. And I would recommend, again, extending these glass panes like we've been doing throughout the build, or how I've mentioned before, just to kind of help connect everything together and make it look a little bit more fluid. So that is what we have going on there. Now for this back section here, we're going to delete this button, these pressure plates, and we want to go ahead and grab our sandstone slabs. We're going to place down a sandstone top slab, delete this trapdoor, place down a slab. We're going to go ahead and place down a skeleton skull to both sides of this bottom slab, and then a skeleton skull on top of those two. After we have that done, we're going to go ahead and grab ourselves some deep slate tile blocks. We're going to place down a block here underneath these skulls on both sides there. And then for the very back, we're going to go ahead and delete this item frame and this slab here, as well as this lever and this zombie head. We're going to place down a wither skeleton skull in its place, and then a item frame on the side of the slab if you're on Java. And in that item frame, we're going to go ahead and place down a gray concrete block like so. Then we just want to place down a birchwood slab, or birchwood trapdoor coming off this block like that on the back, and then in the middle here, we're just going to place down a flower pot on top of that top slab. So just like that. And that's pretty much the kind of main gist of the model here. Now where things get interesting is we're going to be going ahead and adding on this add-on armor. So for this add-on armor, we're going to be going ahead and grabbing our yellow stained glass, our birchwood trapdoors, some end rods, and also a sandstone wall. And we're going to go and start with our turret. So for this, we're going to go ahead and delete this tripwire hook and this item, or that why can't I remember the name of it? And this trapdoor, and that'll be on both sides. We're also going to go ahead and delete our radio antenna, so those iron bars, and also this tripwire hook there, or the skull, whichever you have placed. We're going to go ahead and place down 2 glass panes here on the sides. Then we want to place down 2 end rods coming off of these, and we're going to go ahead and place down trap doors coming off those. We're also going to go ahead and delete this button here, and we're going to place down a wall, then a birchwood trapdoor coming off that skull. And the same thing is going to be done over here on this side. So you're just going to go ahead and copy the same thing over, like so. And that's going to basically create the side armor that's going to go around the turret. Now with this model, you have the option of just doing the armor around the turret, just doing the armor on the sides, or doing both. And for this model here, we're just going to go ahead and throw on both. So for our next section, or next kind of part here, we're actually going to be going ahead and adding the side skirts. For this, we're going to place down a sandstone wall coming off the slab, and then one on top of it. We're going to go ahead and extend this back 1, 2, and I should mention also that these are going to start with this narrow brick slab here and this trapdoor up on the front. But we're going to go ahead and we have 2 columns, then we have 3, and then again delete any item frames, anything that might be getting in your way here. On Java, you don't technically need to delete the item frames. You can actually leave those in place because you can place down a wall and item frame in the same block space like this. However, if you're on a different version, you will need to delete the item frames too. And then we're going to place down our walls. Again, just kind of going back here, and we're going to continue to take these along the side. Again, we'll delete those signs there. And this is going to go all the way back, and just want to double check to this fender here. So we're going to go ahead and do 2 more rows like that, and this is where it's going to end. It's going to end right here where this trapdoor is, and that's going to create the side skirts on the tank. And the same thing you're just going to go ahead and do over here to this side. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and delete any signs that might get in the way. Again, item frames if you're not on Java, and we're just going to go ahead and build our side skirts. And again, as I mentioned, you can go ahead and either build just the side skirts and leave the turret like the original, or vice versa. Whatever you want to do, you can kind of mix and match a little bit with this model. But again, the H models and kind of up was where they really started to add the side armor and the turret armor to help give that extra protection as the tanks needed it, because weapons were just getting stronger and stronger and more capable of taking these tanks out. And then also we're going to place down the birchwood trapdoor here in the middle there. Now, once we have that all complete, we're also going to go ahead and take our black candles, and we're going to be placing these on top of this glass pane here, and this here for your smoke grenade dispensers. We also are going to relocate the radio antenna to the back here. However, to do this, we're going to go ahead and need to delete the birchwood button in the corner. So this one here, we're going to place down a chain, and then we're going to go ahead and place down 1, 2, and 3 iron bars up like that for the radio antenna. You need to place the chain here so you don't have this connection between the wall and the iron bar, which you can see here, it would connect and doesn't look right. So make sure you make that change. And the very last thing here is also the addition of the machine gun that is mounted on top of the turret for the commander's cupola. So very simple. We're going to delete this slab here. We're going to place down a fence gate in its place. And then we want to go ahead and place down a deep slate tile slab on top of it. Behind it, we're going to place down a player head, so the Steve head, like that. And then you want to place down a chain coming off like that for your MG34 or whatever that would be located up on top of the tank. And that right there is going to basically be everything we have there for the H model. So as you can see, it's just definitely a beefy looking tank. Probably one of my favorite of the Panzer IV variants, just due to all the extra armor and just really kind of how they adapted the tank to fight more modern conflicts. Well, I say modern, but more stronger enemies, I guess you can say. So that right there is going to be it for the H model, and with that we'll be going ahead and moving on over to the J model. Moving into our last variant of the tutorial, we'll be going ahead and working on the Panzer IV J. This here was the top of the line Panzer IV model that was fielded, and also I would say top of the line, but also some shortcuts were made to basically make these a little bit easier to produce. So maybe the most recent version of the tank, but probably not the most advanced. So good stuff like we talked about before. If you built the other previous 2 variants, this one here, it does require you to have the C version built, and we're going to be going in and obviously recoloring it into the tan color scheme. Again, the tan color scheme is what the factory would have been making these in at the time of production. Obviously you can change the color scheme, the camouflage, whatever you want to do, but just know that this is what it would look like coming from the factory. Obviously the color is not perfectly exact, but it is close to what we would have. So just keep that in mind going forward, and that's why we have the color we do. So basically all I did here is replace any gray concrete with smooth sandstone, any polished blackstone slab stairs, again with that smooth sandstone, birchwood or dark oak with trapdoors with birchwood trapdoors, dark oak with signs, buttons, pressure plates, again all replaced with birchwood equivalents. And the few minor things I do want to go ahead and talk about here is that you can change out these blocks right here to actually have these stripped birchwood logs, which look a little bit better for the hatches there. And I also did the same thing up here on top for instead of putting a shulker box. So just keep those in mind. Those are a few changes you can make to the build, but overall pretty straightforward. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to modify our gun. We're going to go ahead and begin with by going ahead and deleting this skull. And we're going to place down 1, 2, 3 slabs going forward, and then a polished blackstone slab on the end. On the end of this slab, we're going to place down an item frame, black concrete in it, a dark oak wood sign on the side of it if you're on Java, and then a dark oak wood sign to both sides of this slab as well. So it's going to look like that there. On top of the slab, we just want to go ahead and place down a dark oak wood trapdoor, and that's going to wrap that front of the gun up. And lastly, we're just going to place down a birchwood trapdoor on top of that second top slab, so it's going to look like that there. We then want to delete these flower pots, and we're going to go ahead and place down item frames coming off these trapdoors with snowballs in them. If you're on Java, we can also throw a birchwood pressure plate in front of them, but if you're not, then just disregard that. We're also going to place down a chain coming off this glass pane here to go ahead and create our hole-mounted machine gun. After that is all complete, we want to go ahead and then focus on the back here behind our turret. We're going to delete this button and these 2 pressure plates here to the sides. We're going to go ahead and place down a top slab here, and then delete this trapdoor and another birchwood, another smooth sandstone slab there. We're going to go ahead and place down a skeleton skull to both sides of this bottom slab, and then a skeleton skull on top of the skeleton skulls from below. So look like that. We also want to go ahead and grab ourselves some deep slate tile blocks, and we're going to fill in the space underneath these skulls with those deep slate tile blocks, as well as a birchwood trapdoor there in the middle. After we have that complete, on the very back here of the tank, we do have to modify this a little bit, and this has one of our most simplistic additions here, and that is going to be basically we're going to delete these slabs, item frames, signs, wither skeleton skulls, that lever, and also this right here. In its place, we're going to place down 2 wither skeleton skulls here, and polished blackstone walls going up. Like I said, Germany started to really kind of compromise with the lack of resources and just basically stuck to exhaust pipes up instead of having the muffler design that they had before. And that is all you really need to do for the back. And one thing I'm also going to add is a trapdoor between them and just kind of close it like that. So that is going to create your back of the tank really simple and straightforward. Now, once we get to this point here, again, like the H model, you can go ahead and kind of choose what you can do. So if you want to do the side skirts, you can refer to the H model proportion, and you can put the side skirts on this tank. If you want to do this armor around the turret, you're more than welcome to as well. This is kind of based a little bit off the War Thunder model, if I'm being honest, so that's why it just has the armor around the turret. But again, there is absolutely no reason why you couldn't add it to the sides as well, or just have it on the sides if you want to. So just keep that in mind going forward. You are able to basically do both. It doesn't have to be restricted, but just again to help kind of tell these apart a little bit, I wanted to just do the armor around the turret. So for this armor around the turret, we're going to delete the tripwire hook and this trapdoor on the sides of the turret. We're also going to go ahead and need to delete our radio antenna. So we're going to delete these 4 iron bars and this tripwire hook. Now, once we have that deleted, we're going to go ahead and then go around the turret. We're going to place down 2 glass panes here on both sides, and then we want to go ahead and place down 2 end rods. So 1, 2, and over here 1, 2. We're going to go ahead and then place down birchwood trapdoors coming off the end rods and opened up to lay flat against the tops of them. Then we're going to go ahead and delete this button here and this button here, and we're going to replace them with sandstone walls. And then we want to place down a birchwood trapdoor coming off these skulls here, closed or opened up upwards like that to go ahead and create the armor here around the turret. Now, for the relocation of the radio antenna, we're going to go ahead and place down a chain right here where this button is. So we're going to delete the button, place down a chain. We're not using an iron bar because the iron bar will actually create this connection. We don't want that. And then after we have the chain, we can go ahead and then place down 3 iron bars going up for your radio antenna. Then after that, we're also going to go ahead and grab ourselves some stripped birchwood, and we're going to place down 2 stripped birchwood blocks right there. And also don't forget to take your debug stick here, and you can extend your glass panes to kind of connect to the sides here. Again, just kind of, something that's more a Java-based feature, but just kind of helps improve the overall look and kind of helps you create the best overall design you can really make. So we have that all set up there, and again, the side skirts can be added. You'll just have to refer to the H model portion, but they add the same way, and there's no real conflicts, so you can just follow that portion there if you're interested in that. A few minor things we have left to finish. We're just going to add some black candles on top of these glass panes here, again for your smoke grenade dischargers. And then lastly, we have the machine gun to add to the top of the turret. So again, really simple little add-on here. To the top, we're going to go ahead and break this slab here. We're going to place down a birchwood fence gate, open it toward the cupola. A player head on top of the stair here, so again, it's that Steve head, not anything special. And then a deep slate tile slab going forward, and then a chain coming off like that to go ahead and make your presumably MG34 mount on top there. And after you have that all done, that is going to pretty much complete the J model. And with that, that is going to wrap up the last variant of this tutorial. And with that, guys, that's going to complete my mega tutorial here for the main production variants of the Panzer IV family. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this tutorial, and if you do end up using any of these builds, I do ask that you guys give me proper credit for it. This will be linked from a side of the build, link to my channel, or this video if this does appear on your social media sites. As long as you guys give me proper credit for the build, you're free to for projects you guys are working on. Hopefully you guys do enjoy this these designs. There are plenty of Panzer IVs here to go around. You have 8 total designs, and again, these span across the entire length of the war for the different time periods, so you have a lot of playability of what tank you build and what kind of era of the war you're building and all that stuff. So I really do hope you guys enjoy them and all that. If you want to see more of these huge vehicle family tutorials, definitely let me know down in the comments below, and leave suggestions and stuff like that as always. And also pay attention to my community tab, because I am going to be kind of putting up polls for you guys to vote on which vehicle family you would like to see next. So definitely subscribe if you haven't already, and pay attention to those polls, or my community tab, because I'll be posting those polls. And my goal is to try to do like maybe one of these a week or something like that, just depending on availability. But anyways, hope you guys do enjoy this this video. And with that, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. This has been Garrett 2x4, and I'll see you guys all next time.